Bobby Jr., Greenland, SCOTUS, and more. Welcome to Law and Society. Please subscribe. Today is going to be a relatively short episode because I gave you updates on the court proceedings in the appellate districts before in the previous episode. So before I talk about the things that I just said, I'd just like to point out that there's now been reporting that a guy named Tim Pool has been put in as part of the White House pool. Now, the press pool. Now, he's one of the guys who got money from Russia, who got heavily paid, one of the MAGA propagandists, who got heavily paid by Russia, and essentially said that he didn't know where the money came from. Now, this person now has credentials to be in the White House, but Associated Press, one of the most relied upon and trusted news agencies in the world, has been stonewalled out of White House access because they refuse to call the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. This is the sort of disinformation encouraging environment we live in right now, where you shut out real media that reports the truth and adheres to the truth and a global standard, and you take them off your press pool, but then you give press credentials to somebody who was being paid by Russia, and he just said he didn't know where the money came from and that was sufficient for you. It seems something is wrong here. Another thing that came to mind was how Donald Trump withdrew Elise Stefanik's nomination to be the UN ambassador. So he lost, the Republicans lost 2 seats, one to Mike Waltz and the other one to Matt Gaetz after he resigned when there was a no-go for him to be AG. Now I think he's an anchor or whatever in one of those other B-movie networks that follow Fox's propaganda machine. So those 2 seats are showing to be competitive in the special elections, despite the fact that they are heavily Republican areas. At least they went for Trump in that direction. Same with Elise Stefanik. It gives us a window into the truth that the Republican Party knows that their favorability ratings at this time is really about as low as it has gotten in the last 10 years. And don't worry, it's going to get lower. The approval rating for the Republican Party and Donald Trump will go lower. And so, same with Elon Musk. Now I'll go talk to you about SCOTUS. So Donald Trump has appealed the implementation of the temporary restraining order on the Alien Enemies Act case that stops the government from deporting people to foreign prisons without due process of law. Now that question is going to go up to the Supreme Court of whether the temporary restraining order is right or not. I don't know how long the Supreme Court will take or what their ruling is going to be, but if the Supreme Court were to adhere to what the law says, not even substantively, and sees that the likelihood is high that the government is going to lose on this claim because of the nature of the Alien Enemies Act and how it applies only during wartime, not during migration, they may uphold the stay. And also, I would hope they would ask rule to bring back the people who have been deported without due process. But I'm not sure if they're going to go that far. They may remand it back to Judge Boasberg to, whatever procedures Judge Boasberg orders after that. So it will go back down to Judge Boasberg, and then he'll have to decide what to do and whether or not to order them to be brought back or do digital due process and then bring back the people who were mistakenly deported. I can see some lawsuits there, and I don't know what their cause of action against the government would be, but I'm sure that there are lawyers who would look into that. Then there was a ruling that an appeals court had held up the firing of the National Labor Relations Board and the Merit System Protections Board. These are quasi-independent agencies that are nominated by the president and confirmed by Senate, and they have their terms. And then there is regulations for what you have to do in order to relieve them of their position. Now, the thing here is, in my opinion, the cases against these officers who are nominated and who are part of the executive process, the court may give deference to the executive branch to fire them. The court may say that, you have to follow these procedures, so reinstate them, then give Congress notice, and then to give them 30-day notice, and then you can fire them. But with the lower level employees who are public servants, civil servants, they have causes of action that if they get laid off and fired, that I'm sure that they're speaking with employment attorneys, and I would not be surprised if I see class action lawsuits. So that's on the legal front. Now let's talk about Bobby Jr. RFK Jr. has decided to push out the chief vaccine regulator, Peter Marks, from the Department of Health and Human Services. So essentially, according to Dr. Marks, he has been spreading misinformation and lies, rejecting truth and transparency, and this is an unprecedented attack on scientific truth. And so, because Dr. Marks could not put up with that, he was forced to resign. And while Bobby Jr. is busy pushing out people who believes in the efficacy of vaccines and the truth behind proven science, Bobby Jr. is bringing in people who are anti-vaxxers, vaccine skeptics, like David Geer, who is being brought in to study the connection between autism and vaccines, when there has been several research studies done on it that says that there is no link. So we are seeing a sort of a bastardization of our health and human services, CDC, FDA, and it will make our lives more difficult. It will make our drugs less safe. It will make research less possible. And that's what Bobby Jr. is encouraging for the Department of Health and Human Services that takes care of so many services that millions and millions of Americans rely upon. The last thing I want to talk to you about is Greenland. And start with this. Stay the fuck away from Greenland, Donald Trump and J.D. Vance and Usha Vance and Mike Waltz. They don't want us there. We have a base there because we are part of NATO. Denmark is the one who has control over Greenland. Greenland is an autonomous power. And I think that the British Crown has a right of first refusal if Greenland ever wanted to be that Denmark was going to sell off Greenland or something like that. So, and then you have obviously Vladimir Putin saying that, this has been America's plan for a long time. It's nothing that it should startle anybody. America has every right to assert its presence in the Arctic Circle, and essentially dealing with Greenland the same way that he's dealing with Ukraine. And so he's encouraging Donald Trump to annex Greenland. And if that isn't clue enough that we should steer away from Greenland, because that would cause an internal war within NATO partners and effectively compromise NATO so they can't do anything, the European countries, to be able to help Ukraine, because Denmark is part of NATO, Denmark is part of the EU, whereas Ukraine is not. So that's where we are in the world right now. And I wanted to come out and let you know, give you these updates. And there are many other sources that you can check out and cross-reference. You can go anywhere from the Midas Touch to Bulwark to Heather Cox Richardson on Substack and YouTube, to Katie Couric on YouTube, Charlie Sykes on YouTube. I can't even. There are so many others that I watch, and I watch Joe Rogan when there's something that I'm interested in, somebody that he's talking to. And I'm listening more and more again to Bill Maher speaking about him being the old school liberal and this whole sort of war on wokeism, when really you need to stop saying that, all of you, because a war on wokeism and a war on DEI is a race and gender war. So just cut that out and be like, it's not all right to bring those measures up. It's not all right for you to base your firings on diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's not all right to say we're going to go on a war on woke, which means to be aware of your surroundings. Black families aren't going to stop telling their children to be woke and be aware of their surroundings, especially at a time where there is audience for sympathy for anti-white racism, when the legacy of racism is riddled with the white man being the slaver, for whom even a white woman was property. Anyway, I wanted to be short today. Please stay safe, stay vigilant, like and subscribe, and I will talk to you.